the international conference.
And I would like to ask the first panel to step up, take their seats.
Who typically do you bring into Switzerland, and do you have a problem with the language?
We've gone from sort of 70, 80 people, nearly all pure English speakers. Now we have 30 to 40% native English speakers of all nationalities. We have 30 to 40% second language but pure, fluent English speakers from other nations. And now, interestingly, we have 20 or 30% Swiss people coming. Most of it's been built by word of mouth, and they love it.
Sweden has probably the biggest alternative comedy scene, I would say, followed by Denmark, followed by Norway. I think all performers are excited, would be excited to play Scandinavia and Holland and Germany. I think it's a fantastic offer and challenge. Well, the other side of this as well is, of course, and maybe is the point in terms of ticket sales and revenue and DVDs, and certainly agents should be pricking their ears up. There's 300 million people in Europe. That's a hell of a market to miss. There's only 60 million of us in this country. So, you know, I'm saying the same thing to Americans. Come over here, come to Edinburgh. From Edinburgh you can break into the UK. From the UK you can break into Europe, and it's a very easy hop once that's made. And you've got, as I said, you've got 300 million people here, 300 million people in America. So, you know.
What I'm kind of interested in is to see whether or not people on the panel think that comedy can work in that space, and when it's appropriate that it should work in that space as well. So the first question I will throw over to Hannah, if that's okay. So should comedy be in arenas?
Comedy is better off in intimate and smaller venues, and I still think that. But I think that sometimes when demand for tickets for certain acts is so high, I think there's very good reasons to move into the very large arenas.
I think one of the interesting elements about this year, and I think you touched on this about maybe there being more arena shows this year, there's certainly more touring comedy out there.
To actually then go, but actually now it is big business is what it's turned into. What does everyone else think in the room about that? I know that there's several comics now have been writing pieces about the death of alternative comedy, and that actually arena gigs are the final nail in its coffin. Is that a problem? Is it just a mutation? What does everyone think?
The only way you're going to get through in the business is not by copying your heroes, it's by finding your own voice. And you will find your way up if you want to. Now, if there's that broader base, and that my phone is still ringing that much, I'm not worried about the bubble bursting yet. When the phone stops ringing for those, 500 people wanting to get into the business, then I'll know that's the beginning of everything we need to change. But at the moment, there's no hold up in that, and I think that's very promising.
Can I just say, I think that as long as there's new talent coming through and new material, then they will keep playing the venues. Somebody mentioned the recession in the early 90s. In the early 90s, there was probably only like 4 or 5 arenas at that level that you could play. Now there is about 15 in the UK that you can play. So these buildings are here to stay, and I think that whether it's comedy, rock and roll, television programmes, they are going to get to that level eventually because the demand is there.
Whereas with the stand-up DVD, you have got a fresh piece of content that nobody's seen, which is why obviously the comedians guard their content very, very closely. They'll do something on Apollo and that won't be on their DVD. There's another point to this boom that's actually very positive for kind of edgier acts, in that the amount of money being generated in DVD has led to a bit of a feeding frenzy. It's a bit like the music biz, when I worked in the music biz, where record companies would sign up loads of acts and put money into them, hoping that one of them made it. It means there's a lot of young comedians are getting development deals.
And that's quite interesting that maybe, as you say, for the first
time... You can
argue
Michael McIntyre is the first enormous star from television who's actually only famous for actually doing stand-up.
Yeah, and there's been a huge demand for it. You might argue, in a kind of anti-elitist way, that the BBC are delivering something to a huge number of licensed players who weren't getting comedy they liked. There you go, that's a controversial comment from the right.
So personal and tailored, but I think we all have to strive, both opportunities, the brands and the comedy circuit, is finding the right fit.
I think if your brand is slightly
you have low awareness or you're misunderstood and you don't have much personality, associating with comedy can be a really, really rich territory for you because it lends you a personality that you can jump on the back of, especially now we're in this golden age of comedy, you know, that's hotter than ever. Great example of when a brand gets involved in comedy, understanding that, you know, they're going to have a laugh with it and have the personality to, you know, let the comments run off the back. It can be really, really good for them.
There seems to be a weird irony that if you get involved in comedy and you don't have a sense of humour, then you've probably made a bit of a mistake.
Absolutely.
I think if you're a brand looking to associate with comedy, it's like sitting in the front row. You know that you're putting yourself out there to be shot at. And you actually think, this is it, this is now.
I think so. I've definitely seen this year a huge shift in the appetite for comedy financially.
Thank you to my panellists. It's been really interesting, and thank you to the auditors. Participation has been great. Thank you.